So I would call this the birding revolution. And this photograph here is from Terry Townsend from Birding Beijing. He has allowed me to use this photo. This is from a Twitch in Beijing in 2019, where a Eurasian robin showed up. And it's a very common bird in Europe, of course, but here in Beijing, it was only the third record for Beijing, and people were going absolutely nuts, as you can see from this photo. You cannot see that many binoculars and telescopes here, you know. So this is somewhat symptomatic, I guess, from what is happening today, and what this webinar is mostly about. But all right, let's continue here to see what is different nowadays. This is what this webinar is going to be today. It's just like 3 major points. It's easier today. It's more about aesthetics, and it is more independent. Well, maybe that's an oxymoron looking at the previous picture, but you'll soon see what I mean by saying that it's more independent now than it used to be. All right, so let's see now how people got into birding. When I was a kid, for instance, I was very much interested in birds and in animals. However, I think I have my earliest memories from, you know, like 3-4 years of age, when looking for earthworms to go fishing with my dad at back my house, and I was keeping them in my pocket because I thought it was a good idea to keep them for, you know, for a good day when we were going fishing with my dad. And I was always out, you know, looking at leaves and looking at flowers and looking at, you know, birds that I could see far away. They always got, they were always chased away, of course, but I had this interest from a very early age, as long as I can remember. So throughout the years, I was always very interested in nature. However, I did not have anyone who actually could take me under his wings and to show me nature. I did not know anyone. I didn't have an uncle. I didn't know any birders. There was no birding club in Solna, outside of Stockholm, a suburb to Stockholm where I grew up. So I didn't have all that. And there were certainly birding clubs for youth, or nature clubs for youth, in other areas around Stockholm, but not exactly where I grew up. So it was quite hard. It was not until I started university, and I was already 21, at that time, 22, that I actually met other people that were into birds. I also joined the birding club, also the Stockholm Birding Club and the Nature Club, and went on field excursions. So that was an essential part to become a birder back then. I needed binoculars, of course. It was not until I actually got a pair of binoculars that my mom had bought for using when she went sailing in the summer. She had bought a pair of binoculars 7x42, and no, 7x50. They were really very, very cheap binoculars, but they were, of course, better than nothing. And so that was the second tool that I had that stimulated my interest. And I got a bird book, of course. I looked in that and tried to learn, but it was still very, very hard to do it on your own. So as I said, it was not until I actually started university that I got into it. Other ways that people have gotten into the birds was also by looking at birds when you're feeding them. You know, at feeders in the winter in Stockholm, certainly a lot of people are feeding birds and have been doing that for a long time, and got into birds that way. Maybe they don't go beyond that because they don't have the mentor, etc. Back in those days. However, it's very, very different today. So today, the only thing you need is actually that digital camera. You don't need binoculars. You have the digital camera. You have one on your phone. You have a 10 times magnification on that camera on some of the newer models. So you can actually zoom in a little bit on birds that you can see clear. You can take a photograph. If you don't know what it is, well, you have your internet connection. You post it to Facebook. You ask questions. There are several groups where people, experts, would help you identify the birds. And there are even things that you can put on your phone, like apps, like Merlin and Bird's Eye and iNaturalist, apps that you can put on your phone that helps you identify the birds that you're taking photographs of. And once you sort of get over that little hump, and maybe you already have a camera, man. You bought probably a camera for your last vacation anyway. You were going on a holiday, and you wanted to take some photos, and you realize, well, you know, the thing I got on my phone is not really enough. Maybe I should have a proper camera. So you go around and you shop around, and when the guy at the shop hears that you're in, you know, you're going camping, and you may see some animals, etc. Well, it says, well, you should have the camera with a zoom. So he hands you over a point and shoot mega zoom camera that has up to 50, 70, 60, 70 times optical magnification. And all of a sudden a new world opens up for you, and you can take photographs of birds that are really far away, and they can be identified. You may not think that when you start off that you can actually identify something that's sitting a kilometer away, but you'd be surprised when you upload that photo to these groups on Facebook, that there will be people that will be able to tell you what they are, as long as you put down where you were and you know, what kind of a habitat, etc. Then someone should be able to tell what it is, even if it was like a kilometer away. So it's quite different. So you don't need that mentorship to the same extent. You have the mentors online nowadays, right? And we're going to go to the next slide. So with all this said, it's easier than ever. The next point here on the thing was that it's about aesthetics. And I have often talked about this on the talks that I have been doing on various birding festivals and talks and birding clubs that I've been doing, that it's a little bit a left and right brain approach to birding. If you look at the old days when I started, the reason I got into it, because I had that sort of scientific need to be able to separate one species from the others, to rack up the numbers, to see how many birds I had seen, to eventually to put in a check mark in the checklist. You know, you become listers. It's all about learning the names of the birds, identifying, putting names on everything you see. Very orderly, very logic, and very much left side of the brain. Now, on the right-hand side of the brain, of course, is that, yeah, the people that got into birds through the feeders, well, they have that. They have that aesthetics. They get up close to the bird. They see them up close. They get really into looking at them, studying them for a long period of time. They get emotional about the birds. They laugh with them. They cry with them. They can... and eventually when they get photographs of them, obviously they can share them on social media. And so on social media now, people are sharing photographs of birds, and they are spectacular birds. They are not little brown jobs. They are birds that you can write home about, if you like. You know, it's something that people will share, something that people will put likes on. Now, if I've just put a new check in my checklist, that's kind of hard to share that on social media. So when it comes around to it, it's actually much more visual, much more enjoyable for people that are not into birding at all and will see this for the first time. They will see a new world opening up in front of them when you and I post these beautiful pictures. And of course, it does also give some legitimacy to the nerdy type birders of my generation, because now we also take photographs of birds. We also share those same birds, and all of a sudden it's like it's not that weird anymore to be this sort of analytical weirdo guy that's sort of just interested in his list. We're sharing these photos and we become normal again. You know, it's like something to be proud about, that we actually have this knowledge about the birds in my generation and the people that have been birding for a long time. So there is a lot of potential for birding to grow, and we can also already see that in these numbers from the US. I'm pretty sure that many of you, especially if you're in the North America hemisphere, have seen these numbers from the US Fish and Wildlife Service. Here you see this incredible numbers of people interested in nature, 86 million people are wildlife watching. 86 million. And of those, 45 millions are bird watchers. That is that they can actually be able to name quite a few of the birds that they will be seeing on a regular basis. And, that doesn't really make them a birder in that sense, but there is a seed there. And if you look at the numbers, people are actually going away from home to look at birds. They actually are looking at birds when they're not at home, when they are traveling, when they are away from home. 16.3 million in the US. That's a respectable number. Obviously, when you look at the what the birding clubs are, what the numbers they are seeing, they are not seeing these numbers. We are not seeing these numbers on the tours. So there's obviously some discrepancy here. And that's something we need to do about. And that's something that is happening right now. Are these figures from Fish and Wildlife, are they flawed? Or is it that maybe we haven't really caught up yet with the birding paradigm shift that is happening right at this moment? Because the birder of today, the new birder of today, he doesn't need binoculars. I told you already, he needs that camera, right? So he doesn't identify as a birder for most birders because he doesn't have binoculars. He may have a camera. He may not even have a big camera. Just have a small point and shoot camera, but he still take pictures of birds, And he doesn't have a field guide. He doesn't need to have a field guide when he starts off. Maybe he'll buy one later, of course. They're obviously cheating also having you can have a field guide on your phone. You don't need to have a physical one. So that's fair enough. But as I said, there are all these apps also that help you identify the birds, right? So, and the sad thing is that he is probably in no need of having being a member of a birdwatching club either. And that's a harsh reality for many birdwatching clubs, and I will come back to that in a while. The new birder, he can perfectly well go out and take a photograph of a bird without actually having that need of being a member in a birdwatching club. So you bird at your own terms. You don't have to make an appointment with others. You don't have to get up at a certain hour to do it. You do it whenever you can. You don't have to be social because if you don't want to. And there's a lot of people like that. So maybe that hidden number there in those millions and millions of birders in the US are reflected by the fact that we don't actually need the birding clubs. We have to do something about that. Because obviously the birding clubs and the birder, the community as such, is one that is very much keen on conservation and to spread the word, etc. And it will become even a political factor to take into account when people are when there are big decisions being made about development, etc. If there's a good community, if there's good constituency for birders having a voice, then that's a good thing. So we need to get the birding clubs better organized and get them to have more power. And even so, I've been having these slide presentations. I bet that I can get more viewers on this slide presentation that I'm doing right now than on any other slide presentation that I've been doing in the birding clubs the last 5 years, and probably even 5 years together of all the presentations I've made. I can probably get more views here by doing this online than I can do at these meetings. Now, it's kind of hopefully nice to see each other face to face, and that's something we should not forget about. But when it comes down to the conveniency of actually doing this online whenever you please, you don't even have to do this live. You can actually come back and check out this webinar later. The link will be out there. So certainly these slide presentations are a bit superfluous in many ways. And again, something that birding clubs are suffering about. And finally, yeah, you don't even need bird watching tour companies today, because you can easily do it on your own. All the information is out there. There are trip reports, there are eBird locations where you can go. You can find birding guides, no guarantees though, or if you find them on the internet. But you can probably get some, some good recommendations from your friends. So who needs a bird watching company today? So maybe we need to think about other ways of attracting our clients as well. And that will be the topic of my next webinar coming up in a couple of days. I don't know exactly when, but it will be probably 3-4 days from now. So today we are going to talk about what the birding club can do to actually attract more members. And there's like 5 different things that I have thought be very good strategies. Some birding clubs are already doing these, and I think if you try to adopt these 5 strategies, then you have a really good chance of getting more members. So first of all, you should have a local Facebook group for your birding club, and the smaller area that it covers, the better. So if you're in California, for instance, there is already a group called Birding California, and it has a lot of members, but you may want to do it like in your county, just a Facebook group for your county. So people are not scared away by the massive amount of posts that you can get. And call it like birding such and such county. Don't call it rare birds in such and such county. You can have that group as well, but have one for beginners. You should have beginner bird watching groups that people can actually search for where they live. And you will find that there will be a lot of conversations going on. I started a group for North America called Bird Identification Basics North America, just because I felt at the time there weren't any such groups. Now, of course, there's the ABA group as well, but there wasn't at the time. And I thought there was a need for that kind of group where you can actually just post a picture and say, what's this? But you could do the same sort of thing from the pattern of that group. Do the same for your local county. It's a very good idea, and it could also, you can announce also your meetings, etc., and all sort of activities going on nearby in that group. The other thing you can do is, rather than only doing your field trips to the best birding areas, most of which are often quite remote, look at areas where you can just see a few birds. It doesn't have to be that many, And now when we're in this lockdown, we are actually looking at birds from our homes. And I've been surprised to count just from my office window here, 23 species of birds. That's plenty of birds that you can show to your neighbors and to people that live in the same area. So 2 strategies you can do here. One is that you tell all the members in your birding group, in your birding club, that everyone in the birding group will arrange small little outings. And you don't have to be an expert to actually show people the common birds in your neighborhood. So you look out at the nearest area where there are a couple of trees, a few flowering trees. Maybe you live in an area where people have gardens or feeders or so forth, close by to where you live. And you put out announcements in the local store, wherever you're allowed, library, wherever you're allowed to put up announcements physically. You put those up. You share with your friends all these different spots. Of course, you're doing events on your Facebook group, and you're also tagging all your friends. You're sending messages so they can spread the word. So you try to get as many people as possible. And you have 2 options. One is that you do it from your home before work, for instance, and you can do it so that people can do this without actually taking too much time an effort, and they can come out for half an hour, for an hour, and just look at some birds before they go to work. That's one way of doing it. You can do it also in the weekend, of course, but if you do this in the week, then it's an easy way of actually try to get people to come on that weekend excursion that the club is doing anyway. The other thing you can do also is that you do this at your workplace. You do like a birding lunch. Grab some fast food or bring something from home, or skip lunch for a day. It won't kill you. Just do a bit of dieting there, and you go out and with a jug of water and with some lime in it, and you go out and you birdwatch instead. Yeah, and you again do that at a nearby park, and you can put up some notice at your workplace and say that today I'm organizing this little walk. It will only take 30 minutes of your time, and I will show you 40 minutes of your time, and I will show you 10 species of birds that you have in your vicinity. And it's a great way to get people into birds, and you can show them how to take photographs, also how to take photographs with their phones, doing phone scoping with your, if you bring the tripod and your telescope, and you can show them how to take pictures with a point-and-shoot camera, etc. So there's many ways of doing this. And then when you have your, the third point here is the bird photography classes. So the birding clubs should have a regular tips for bird photography on all their excursions all the time. Have that mindset. Have the mindset of showing people how to use their cameras. A lot of people will have cameras with them. A lot of people will be taking photographs. As much as you go through how to use binoculars on your field trips, go through how to use the cameras as well. Show them small little tricks. People that have point-and-shoot cameras, show them not to take photographs using the screen in the back, because they cannot hold it still when you zoom in. Tell them to use the viewfinder. Tell them how to get the viewfinder sharp. Surprisingly, many people don't know that little wheel that is on top of the viewfinder is actually to adjust your eyes to see the numbers in the screen sharp. I have had a lot of people coming up to me on the birding trip saying, well, I'm not using the viewfinder because I can't see anything in it. So I said, did you actually try to roll the wheel as well to get it focused? And when they do, of course, it's a different story. All right, I'm going to switch back here, so I can see some of your reactions. So let me see here. All right, so I will want to have that a little bit. So, all right, so I'm going to share this now. Right, so there we go. So you can see, still see my screen here now. So I have 2 more points here. The second by last is bird marathon. That sounds like, should I run 42 kilometers or 26.2 miles to see the birds? No, you don't have to do that. This is an idea that we did in Lima during a birding festival, and it's quite neat, actually. We selected 42 species of the most common birds, and we tried to get people to get photographs of each and every one of those in as little time as possible. That was the challenge. That was the bird race that we did. So it's a type of a big day, but we don't go from break of dawn to midnight. Or very popular also is that you can do a big day, but just using specific hours. But it will take a lot of knowledge to be able to do that. And since people are so photography minded anyway nowadays, why not just use that as your challenge? Get 42 of the most common birds that you think that people will not be able to miss to take the photograph of during 7 to 5 or 7 to 6 or whatever of your birdathon. And then you have, well, when we did this, there was obviously not a lot of Wi-Fi sharing from the cameras. You have that today. Now, I think you should be able to upload the photos into a folder and you can share that with the judges. But the idea is to have only 42 photos in that folder, or 42 photos on that SD card that we had back in those days. So it was a fast thing for the judges to go through and see whether people actually had that. And the person that had, so this could run the whole day, but of course, if people are done in, say, 3 hours, well, there's your winner. So it shouldn't take all day. And whenever people are coming back from the challenge, that is when you cut off. And the winners, of course, are the ones that are doing this in this time. 42 species is still quite a lot. And we have, we made a version of this by doing the half marathon with only 21 species. So we actually had guided walks showing people most of these 42 species, trying to go to different birding spots, and then people could take photographs of 21 birds, and they would submit that, and in the end we would have a like a raffle. So we had a winner also in like the amateur group, and just by a raffle, but just by participating. But it's a great little idea that you can do in your birding clubs as well, and do that as an event. All right, so the last thing here is that you have to think about people's comfort zone. That thing that to drive away to a distant place, it will, again, it will affect their, there's a lot of hurdles on the way. There's a lot of thresholds to get over, a lot of bumps on the road. You have to get up early. You have to drive for an hour, maybe. Maybe you don't know anyone there, and you will maybe feel a little bit intimidated. So the key thing is to try to get people into the comfort zone, their comfort zone. So, so here is the idea. What you can do combos of things. When people are doing other things than birding, you can do a combination with that thing. So you can present birding in, say, most of the people here know that I'm a runner. So I've been doing with my running club, we were doing a Run for Birds event. So I was actually showing the birds while we were running, you know, things like that. And you can tell your birding clubs, your running clubs, that maybe you could arrange a race that is for the birds, you know, a bird conservation race, something like that. You know, then you attract birders and runners at the same time. You can do this with a lot of different things. You know, sky's the limit here. Maybe arts. You know, it's been done successfully. Art shows. They had a big one in Tate's Museum in the UK. Some years ago about extinct birds, you know, BirdLife International was organizing that. So there's a lot of things you can do by combining different things. You get a synergistic effect by doing this. So those are the things that the bird clubs can do, and I'm sure there's going to be other things here in the comments. I see that Adam has been putting up some stuff there as well, so we'll have a look at that later. So. Oops, now coming back to my slideshow here to do that. All right, I'm totally new at this, so please bear with me. All right, here we go. All right, here's the slideshow. And in order to actually change the picture there, I need to go back to that. Okay. So the topic for the next webinar that I'm doing is what a birding company can do. And I will be coming back to this point. I've already presented quite a few of these things on my website and on my tours, but I will come back for the reasoning why it is important to come up with new ideas. Principally also because there is this huge untapped market I was telling you about. If you think about it, there is all these people that have never been on a birding tour. You have to ask yourself why that is. Yeah? Maybe you need another focus. Maybe you need to focus more on the bucket list approach to birding, like these spectacular birds, or maybe bird families. There's a guy that has Oz Horizine, or I can't pronounce his name. It's an Israeli guy. He has a website called Bird Families of the World. You should check that out and check which bird families you have seen, just to preamp a little bit what I'm talking about on my next webinar. Think about iconic mammals. There's plenty of mammals that will attract non-birders as well, and you can turn those into a birding trip. And then again, birding and culture, there are so many ways you can combine that. So if you are interested of hearing my next webinar about these novel approaches and what birding companies can do, please sign up for our newsletter on our blog. I should have had a landing page really, but I wasn't able to do one in time. So that's the closest thing I can get. Go to my blog. The link is there, colibriexpeditions.com/blog. And you find a few of these ideas already presented there on that blog, of course, as well. So, but you can sign up there for the newsletter if you're not on it already. And so finally, just to sort of whet your appetite a little bit, I will show you this the last slide. And this is sort of shows you how this approach could be taken when you think how to organize a tour. If you're thinking about a World Heritage Site such as Machu Picchu, and then you think about the most spectacular birds you can see nearby there. Here in Peru, that would be the cock of the rock and the torrent duck. Both of those can be seen in Aguascalientes. Not very far from there, you can see the condor, which can also be included in the same trip. That was, yeah, that was it. I hope it didn't take too long time. I said it was going to be short. Oh, 36 minutes. Well, there you go. I could probably do this shorter next time, but it was a long introduction. I really hope that you have enjoyed this and that we had a few people checking it out. And I'm going to go through here the chat. If there is any, yeah. Yeah, they all these photographers. Yeah, I often hear that. Okay, this is yeah. Well, let's address that. I think we just have to adopt to this. Actually, it's there will be more photographers, and not all of them will have these mega lenses, and not all of them will go to these twitches. But man, if it wasn't for people in Asia getting interested in bird photography today, I think many of those countries would not have as vibrant sites that they do have. I mean, they have. I haven't been to Thailand myself, but from what I've heard is that there's like every park is just full of people photographing birds, and people are caring about nature. And this is also from Chinese friends that I have also. They're saying, I mean, China has a sort of bad reputation of not being very good with conservation, etc. But this new thing about bird photography in China is affecting people very positively, and just seeing how fast things can change in China from one day to another, and having these huge numbers of people that are interested in photographing birds will have an impact on conservation. I think it's the best thing that ever happened to birding. And even though we will see less hardcore birding, which to the group I count myself, this is still a blessing. I think this is going to save the business. It's going to give opportunities to the business, and we just have to look at different ways of doing it. And it will certainly be a good tool for conservation. The more people we can get into this, the better it will be for conservation. There will be, of course, many times where ethics are not followed, and that can happen from bird photographers. And it has happened in the past to also among birders, and it will still be that way. From a birding point of view, from our background that we have, the people that started with the analytical mindset 15 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago, we have that in our programming. We have conservation in our programming. That's what we're all about. When you come from the aesthetics, that is not so much so. You see the beauty. Yeah, as Ron is saying here, you see the potential for the best shot. You don't see the conservation aspects of things. And that is true. However, I think little by little, people will get into it. People will definitely get into it. And we can only, from the sort of traditional birding point of view, not point fingers, even though sometimes we probably should, but try to be proactive and help people realizing that this is an important issue. We cannot just we have to care for the birds that we're looking at. That's the main thing. And there may be conflict of interest here as well. But certainly, looking at the birds, photographing the birds are far better than shooting them. So I hope you agree on that sentiment. So, right. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And check out my next webinar. Until next time. I think it'll be like 3-4 days. And if you haven't checked out the other thing, you can do that also. Check out my post on Satipo Road. That is on my blog that I linked to as well. So have a great day, everyone. And I see you here next time. Bye.